गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're going to talk of India's dual strategy. That dual strategy revolves around military deterrence and diplomatic de-escalation. And to talk us through this with me is Brigadier Arun Saigal. Sir, at the outset, good evening and welcome once again to Gana Shot.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm honored to be on the show again. It's
Sir,
always a
it's our
privilege.
honor. It's our honor and privilege. But what want to tell everyone is there are a lot of things happening in Pakistan. Baluchistan has its own dynamics. The number of people getting killed in KPK and Baluchistan, every day 3 to 4 people are being knocked off. There's some incident or the other. Um, it's quite apparent that the army has lost control over large parts of the area west of Indus.
Hmm.
Notionally, it says it has, but I don't think the writ of the nation runs in every corner of this, their own nation. The second thing is that it's very funny. 10 years back, or 50, no, I won't say 10 years back. I go back to my younger days as a major and a captain. Pakistan used to regularly beat us in Sharjah and in cricket, and it was going against the run of the mill if India had to get a victory there. Today, it regularly gets beaten by everyone, not India, everyone. Yesterday, you look at Afghanistan in contrast. Afghanistan just wiped out, or just, it was a tough match, but it blanked out England. Now, there's a difference. I mean, the way I look at it, the strength of the nation gets reflected in sports, or whatever is happening in sports gets reflect is a outflow of the strength of the nation. And here you have a nation which I think has weakened and is heading towards failure. It failed, but beyond failure. So it is in this context, with the current situation and the fact that Brigadier Saigal has been involved in track two dialogue, I thought let him tell us and educate us about that, and then we will do India's dual strategy. So this whole talk will be in, or discussion will be in, two parts. Even if it takes a little more time, we'll go ahead with it. So first, I request, like we discussed, your views about where Pakistan is heading. That's the first part. First question I have, and then what is the sense you get from the track two dialogue interaction you had with all these your counterparts
Thank you
there?
very much, sir.
All yours, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a, I, in about 10 to 15 minutes, I'll try and share with you my thoughts on what I pick up from this track two dialogue, which I've been part of for last over a decade now. I want to share with the viewers my views, my perceptions. You may agree, you may not agree, you're absolutely welcome to it, but I'll share with you what is it. This dialogue is in three parts I want to highlight. We have the military part, we have the nuclear part, and then we have the Kashmir part, or now we call it the political dialogue. So we have been having the normal dialogues and normal to and fro accusation, counter accusations have been is the norm as would be expected in a dialogue like this. But as the general pointed out regarding the cricket and the mood of the people, there is a sense of insecurity and disappointment which is looming large in the action attitudes of the Pakistanis. They are looking for straws. They two three things are important to understand. One is that, rightly said, there is a political dysfunctionality in the country. Second thing is economically, although things are slightly looking up, but they are still out of control. Recently, the 20 plus $20 billion World Bank uh, not loan or facility which is being provided to Pakistan looks to be a good this thing. And Shehzad Sharif has to go to China to get some more money for the Pakistanis. But the question is basically the perception is the country is being sold out and there is no development taking place. There's a sense of despondency which is emerging over there. And despite all this, particularly within the military leadership, and there are about 4 or 5 generals who come for the dialogue who are all very deeply ensconced in the system, as well as the diplomats. There is this sense of trying to achieve moral and physical equivalence with India. They are willing to spend their crown jewels towards this. But having said that, they are also conscious of the fact that India at this point in time has little traction to deal with Pakistan. The fundamental point of that issue is very simple, which we try to convey to the Pakistanis is very clear. You have to stop this Kashmir bogie, and we must have big ticket items which are helpful in kickstarting our relationship. It cannot be religious terrorism or religious tourism. It cannot be bans. It cannot be visit to each other's NDCs, etc. It has to be, even if we're talking about trade, it cannot be bilateral trade alone. Trade has to be of a much higher amount, because what will be bilateral trade? We'll have $5 billion, $10 billion. That's nothing. It has to be a transit through Pakistan. It has to be to deal with we looking at the facilities which are coming up in Pakistan and to be exploited jointly in once we have a certain degree of understanding and coherence in our relationship. In short, there has to be a greater degree of regional integration between India and Pakistan to move the thing forward. And one ultimate aim of point in this whole thing is this whole bogey of terrorism has to stop. Now, interestingly, the Pakistani political leaders and more importantly the military generals understand this. For the first time, they have accepted the fact that the Kashmir is losing traction. We are not going to get anywhere on Kashmir. India can manage the internal despondency, I mean, internal elements in Kashmir. In fact, the internal situation in Kashmir are raised more by Indian interlocutors who have this certain degree of of they have a certain degree of
Nostalgia.
nostalgia with Kashmir. But the question basically is, as far as the Pakistanis are concerned, they are acknowledging the fact that focus on Kashmir has been a messed up strategy. And they are also now, for the first time, acknowledging the fact that why to talk about Indian Kashmir, our own dealing with our own Kashmir, so which they call an Azad Kashmir, and the Gilgit Baltistan and the northern areas and other areas have been despicable. We are not even given them self governance. It is being run by a joint secretary in the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and that's the kind of this thing. And we keep raising it up whenever we want to create the bogey. So this is the general perception. But there are two issues which have become very important. I mean, which are the cause of concern. One is the statement coming from India, particularly Raksha Mantri statement and the subsequent statement by our army chief, which have been blown out of proportion by the Pakistanis, and the counter by the Pakistani army chief, who said that not three, but we can fight 10 wars with India if it's so required, which is the rhetorical statement made in Azad Kashmir, and the chief minister of Azad Kashmir situation that we should start sending terrorists once again in larger numbers. While these are just statements, but these are taken seriously by the elements who are mischievous and who are trying to create, trouble in Indian Kashmir and also against the present government in Pakistan. Therefore, I am not too sure this coming summer we might see some incidents of violence which will further uh, create tensions between us and spoil our relationships. I cannot see. On the issue of Article 370 and abrogation, there is no stomach left in Pakistan on this issue. The only issue now is that having in a huff withdrawn their high commissioners, the problem for the Pakistanis is how to revert to status quo ante, but without losing face. Now, this is an issue which is they are willing to swap high commissioners. They are ready to do swap high commissioners, but they are not ready to. I mean, do it carte blanche. There have to be a conditions created. Now, what kind of conditions are created? Uh, there was a hope that there might be a pull aside when external affairs minister went to Pakistan for SCO meeting. That did not happen. There were perceptions that if there is a cricket is restored,
Diplomacy.
the cricket diplomacy is restored, then the two sides may be able to build up on that to build relationship. Even that has not happened. So there are basically a dilemmas that they are facing on this issue. The second issue is, like I mentioned earlier also, there's a despondency emerging about the situation in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They are now looked at near abroad rather than part of the integral part of the Pakistani territory. They are becoming no-go areas, like we discussed in a CASA podcast
On
2 days
Balochistan.
back on Balochistan. Balochistan is becoming, like somebody said and rightly said, the nights are no longer owned by the Pakistani state. Neither the days are now getting more and more less owned by them. The military is unable to contain violence or the acts of secessionist acts which the Blutis are mounting. The result is that the CPEC projects are suffering. Chinese are unsure, and this is where it is becoming a major economic headache for Pakistan. Uh, on Kashmir, there is one more element which is coming up. Is that is there? There sometimes they talk about two issues. One is the old 4-point formula being considered, and also the as an extension of Bajwa doctrine, and then leading to sometimes they talk about a 15 years, 20 years standstill agreement on Kashmir. These are basically SOPs. These are only conjectural issues which are talked about. But it's important to note is that in their mindset is becoming more defensive rather than offensive in dealing with India, and particularly in its relationship with India. One important factor which our people need to understand is that Bajwa doctrine did not succeed because the military was not on board. The Bajwa doctrine did not succeed because the religious elements within Pakistan and certain elements in the political establishment are the ones who torpedoed it. The military was keen to do it. That's the perception that we were given, and this has been cross-checked. At least I'm very clear that Bajwa was keen to move forward in our relationship, but unfortunately, these elements continue to hold sway in Pakistani politics. The the Another disturbing element is strategic stability. Pakistan, as a believes that nuclear weapon is their ultimate security. They are upgrading their arsenal. They are increasing the warhead number of warheads. They are enhancing the warhead designs. more silos are being constructed. The the Hunger class submarines will have tube launched missile capabilities. Whether they what range they get, I presume they will have about 700 or 800 kilometer capability, like based on RAD systems. But the fact of the matter is that China will provide them with second strike capability, and this has to be taken cognizance of. And the second thing is that these Hunger class submarines with nuclear capable submarines are going to get located in Gwadar. And here, like I said in the podcast the other day, there is a huge Sino-Pak collusion in building up a credibility of Pakistani second strike as a part of the Indian containment strategy. And so this is an issue which is not going to go away, because Pakistani military leaders believe that this is something which is it is a, a, their social national security issue, because they will not compromise on that. Second element is technology. They are getting a huge amount of technology, particularly in terms of the ISR capability, in terms of AI, and in terms of cyber. There are also programs which are being. I am part of another dialogue where we talk about technologies, and I've seen that how Pakistanis are trying to develop even quantum and other technologies. Now, these issues are important. We They are not bothersome, but we need to take cognizance of, because enhancement of capabilities is something which we need to be concerned about. So this is, in short, the perceptions of about Pakistan. I can sum it up by saying there is a sense of insecurity. There is an desire to improve relationship with India. They are looking that direct connection, if they do not work, given India's neighborhood troubles, or the scenario of the neighborhood, there might be an opportunity to revive SARC. There's a BIMSTEC meeting taking place on 3rd, 4th of April. They were saying that maybe that we can think in terms of having a SARC element on the sidelines. Basically, they are finding solutions how to break the logjam, and this is indication of their degree of insecurity. But one thing we have to understand this is that Pakistani political establishment, backed up by military establishment, as far as their own country is concerned, they are not in fully in control. They are they are they are they are in control, but it is something in which the dissonance which is building up rapidly within the country is giving them a lot of sleepless nights. I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, sir, I'll try and answer them.
So you did mention about China in the passing. Uh, did you get a sense that they are being arm twisted by China, or are they willingly into everything with China?
Okay. The answer is very simple. As far as Gwadar and areas are concerned, they are now de facto Chinese territory. Like we said the other day, the announcements in the Gwadar airport are first made in Chinese language and then in others. The area around Gwadar and area routes approaching out of there are controlled by the Chinese. Chinese are putting up a large number of trade zones. Those are all for Chinese products to be marketed to Middle East and on to Europe and to United States. The idea is the power which is being produced at 23 rupees a kilowatt, which is much beyond, but people cannot pay more than 9 to 10 rupees. So there's a 13 rupees amortization of cost which the Pakistani government cannot afford. So in short, what is happening is the payoffs from the great CPEC investments are not being fully met to the Pakistanis. Number two, The security costs of keeping Chinese happy and smiling and without getting killed are also going up. And third element is there is a growing questioning as to what exactly are the payoffs in terms of jobs and the quality of life that are being felt by the people of Pakistan. So there are a lot of questions being raised. It is being kept alive by the Pakistani state more as a leverage to ensure a certain degree of that Pakistan is not arm twisted, particularly at this particular point in time. Is also being applied that in future it might be useful of providing Pakistan the desired connectivity that they want, and also that should there India Pakistan some kind of a rapprochement takes place, there is a Chinese presence around which can be a sort of a safeguard to their
The
interest,
backstops.
the backstop. So basically,
Yeah.
China is being used for multiple reasons. The Chinese are very clear that it is a losing enterprise. BRI is not paid the kind of dividends, but the strategic opportunities which this is providing, and the fact of the matter is that with the Indian Ocean region, with a 22, $23 trillion Chinese economy, is becoming a very important gateway for their trade and energy transit. So to them, for that reason alone, these are costs which are worth bearing. So
Yes.
that
The
is
second
the
question, sir. I mean, sorry, sir, but since
no,
it's
no,
triggered,
yeah, sure.
uh, I've done a full study of Gwadar, sir. A
Mhm.
very deep insight. Of course, I did a program which doesn't cover many things which came out.
Mhm.
Firstly, there's no water there. There's
Yes.
simply no water. They have a plan to get water from Tajikistan. And very surprisingly, that plan they've given to Chinese for approval also. So that means there's really no water. There's no electricity out there because I don't see a substation or any electric thing anywhere around. So whatever electricity is being produced in Gwadar is just enough for that naval base and the airport. So there's nothing. There are no roads. And I don't know if you have ever seen the geography of Gwadar.
I, mm,
The entire approach into Gwadar goes through the Gwadar city, and the Gwadar city is in the neck of that peninsula, which juts into the thing. So I don't know the efficacy of this whole story because it looks absolutely not, infantile tactics and strategy the way it has been located, deployment. And if you see all aerial maps and satellite maps and all, there's absolutely not a single shed of industry out there. Nothing.
mm,
You can't. So, given this, there are two issues which come out of this. What is the time frame they're looking at? That's the first part because so far whatever has been spoken is all big talk. There's not a single submarine pen out there. Uh, and there's no play this thing. There are a lot of road shows and all made, but buildings are not there. Nothing. There's one Pearl Continental hotel, and that's the end of the story. Plus some dockyard repair stuff and all. There's hardly any one ship which comes there once in 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, and that too is also a logistics kind of a ship and nothing more. So, given this, all this, is there a time frame for all realization of these dreams? One, and number two, are the Chinese prepared to put boots on ground? Because I don't think without boots on ground, this Gwadar is going to see the light of the day. And I don't think it's within the capability of Pakistan. In fact, come to think of it, I don't think it's in the capability of even the Chinese chaps to put boots on ground and make Gwadar a success.
okay.
So, I mean,
Yeah, sure. Mm.
you, I mean, in this context, this is my conviction, right? And I'd like you to respond to that. In the light of this, are we realistic to think that Gwadar will be what it is, second strike capability and all? Because I don't see it happening in the next 10 years.
No, Gwadar is a medium term project. It's gonna Chinese are absolutely keen to create Gwadar as to the first outpost of the Chinese Overseas Naval Command.
Yes,
It
that
is
there's no doubt.
okay.
That there's no
Number
doubt.
one. Number two, Chinese are also clear that one Augusta class submarine, because of the channels the way they are, it's a deep sea port. can provide a security to this as far as the maritime is concerned. You have raised absolutely important issues regarding water, infrastructure, etc. Those are absolutely important issues. But this is where what the Chinese have done is they have taken over a specified area. I don't remember how many kilometers of area, which is being developed into a primarily a Chinese colony. It's just like if you go to Qatar and other places, you see these American bases which have come up in those deserts. It is
So
it is
that
a
is
replica. It is they are trying to
that
create
is
a
so.
replica.
Now, if you see the map of Gwadar, that is apparent. Beyond the neck of Gwadar, there's a fence. You can see it on the satellite map, and
Yeah,
every
yeah.
anything beyond that is Chinese.
Hmm.
And there's not a single tenement out there.
So,
And
see, what the Chinese are interested in do is that if they have to sail a carrier battle group or a large maritime force into the region, it will need supplies, it will need technical support, it will need loops, it will need all kinds of
uh,
systems. That is where the Gwadar comes into play. They have this place in Djibouti, but it is too far away. So this is the cornerstone or the crown jewel of the Chinese thinking. Whether they will be able to create this, whether they will be able to develop it in the fashion that they are thinking about, is something which we need to keep tracking. I will simply say one thing. When this in Chakfu, the developments were taking place in early 2000, I have written about it that this is going to become a very important Chinese facility. Nobody took us seriously at that time, and we sort of said कि ये नहीं हो सकता kind of a scenario. Single boy mooring है was a, but they had a single boy mooring, and the VLCC would come and discharge crude. So the same thing they can do. They can create a SBMs, etc., to discharge crude. So my point is that we have to take note of these developments, follow them, and see how much can the Chinese do, and do our own calculations. Strategically, Chinese will not give it up. That's the point we must remember.
that I
How hard it
agree.
is. How hard it will. So it is
So
a facility.
fine. So that means we need to have a clear strategy as to how to deal with Gwadar and how to delay it tactically and strategically,
But not before
and make it
30s. Not before 30s. So we have 5 to 7
30 is
years
too
to do.
far. So 30 is too close. The way I look at it, if you
Hmm.
see what's happened so far, sir,
Hmm.
30 is too close for the kind of picture which they're at least envisioning. I would look at it at somewhere around 35 is the earliest. But then, sir, thanks a lot for this part because I thought let me put it across to everyone who's watching and to understand where Pakistan is, where it's likely to go, and how it is struggling, right? And how, despite the outward thing of seeking parity with India, it realizes it can never be at parity with India, and it will slowly, as time passes, it will have to find its own level to understand that India is now too far ahead of the game. Right. So, with this, we could now start talking of India's dual strategy, military deterrence and de-escalation as and diplomatic de-escalations as the two prongs of this strategy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I'll shift gear and talk about a very interesting strategy which India has been following. I mean, we have been following it, but it doesn't get that much of recognition that it desires, because what have we been doing? We have a issue. We have a legacy dispute with both our neighbors, and who are also both following what I call a coercive strategy against India. China used border as its preferred strategy, while Pakistan wages proxy war and terrorism using Kashmir as a flank. What we have done in the past is that we have adopted what I would call a mix of dissuasion and diplomatic strategy. Uh, We entered into a large number of CBMs. Peace and tranquility was maintained along the borders till the friction started coming up in Chumma, they're coming up in Doklam, then it coming up in Texang, and then it happened. May 2020 happened. As far as Pakistan was concerned, uh, things were peaceful till 1999, when Pakistan, immediately after testing nuclear weapons, started used Kargil as an attempt to occupy and intrude into India at the line of control, breaking all past agreements and undermining the similar agreement. Now, here again, while we used our forces, we used them very in a nuanced manner. We did not permit our air force to cross the line of control, and we fought the Pakistanis within our own territory to push them out or to uh, negate them. See, so the here the issue a lot of academic and a lot of analysts are thinking about is, was India's actions in, particularly in a major intrusion or major war kind of scenario with Pakistan in 1999, India was distracted by the nuclear deterrence on both sides. uh, did Pakistan get emboldened because of its nuclear weapons? What was has asymmetry vis-a-vis the Chinese emboldened the gray zone operations of provoking us all along the LAC? Now, these were the issues that were bothering everybody till about the till about the end of 2010. We were all facing these issues, and we were all being defensive in our strategic thinking. Post the arrival of this political dispensation, there has been a shift in India's overall grand strategy, particularly as it relates to dealing with our border problems and our immediate threats. The first fundamental which has happened is that India has adopted a policy of what I call a calibrated military response to any such provocations where we see that our limits of tolerance are being crossed. But this is why I say calibrated, because in use of force, we have been nuanced, we have not been escalatory, and we have followed that use of force by a credible political response to ensure that tensions between two nuclear neighbors don't cross into an arena where the escalation becomes unmanageable. So, the shift that involved two, two track strategy. One is the deterrence strategy. What is India's deterrence strategy that we are talking about? India has shifted from, like I mentioned, passive defensive posture of 2008 Mumbai attacks to a nuanced proactive deterrence by punishment. And the examples of this are the way we handled Doklam. When Doklam occurred, we did not fight shy of building up our forces, deploying our troops face to face, and being ready for any eventuality. In Galwan, we had a face off with the Chinese, and where the Chinese got casualties, much more than they accept. But the fact of the matter is that we did not fight shy of, of taking on the Chinese. Then, more importantly than that, our Kalash Mountains actions. When we found that Chinese were doing unprovoked escalation, capturing grounds which they were not against the accepted norms, we launched an operations to occupy commanding heights which overlooked at their this thing, and which became as the first element of China's disengagement strategy. Vis-a-vis Pakistan, we all are aware of Uri and Balakot as examples. The whole idea basically has been is that India's calibrated escalation is being defined by thresholds of tolerance and indicating our red lines. Now, we have to understand this thing. Vis-a-vis Pakistan, there is this whole nuance element of what is called space below the nuclear threshold. India is not exploiting the space below the nuclear threshold. What India is saying is that should you carry out an escalation or an act of terror which hurts me, I will respond to that act of terror with a military response. You will get a military response. However, my actions are to give not tit for tat response, but to give you an adequate response which stops you from further escalation. Second element of this thing is, should you feel that you want to respond to my actions, I have the capacity and capability to manage escalations. That is vis-a-vis the Chinese, vis-a-vis the Pakistan. The element vis-a-vis the Chinese has been, as we all aware, and this is particularly for our civilian friends who are listening to the podcast, is that this time, in retaliation to the Chinese massive deployments, his Chinese build-up, Chinese infrastructure development, India has done two-track strategy. It has deployed close to similar number, and if not more than number of troops on the border as a dissuasive deterrence. We have upgraded our posture both in terms of mechanized forces, in terms of our artillery deployment, escalation in terms of our forward posture in terms of air power is concerned, as also enhanced ISR cover. Aim basically is that we are ready to deal with any escalation that you might do, and therefore you do not deter us uh, through your physical deployments. We are conscious of the military asymmetry, but what India is trying to do, and it has achieved in Eastern Ladakh, is developed a credible military posture to deal with any Chinese escalation in the short term or a medium term. This is the important part. We are not, we are, if you follow a CIPRI yearbook and say this many capabilities, etc., that's not the issue between us and the Chinese. But we have been able to prove a similar credible force levels and capacities to deal with any Chinese attempt at escalation or even try to capture our territory with a quid pro quo or quid pro quo plus responses. So the Kailash Mountain operations, like I talked earlier, was an indicator of that. So what? So the message is clear. You cannot exploit spaces either below conventional conflict or through the line of actual control, which is undemarcated, to use them to your advantage. So this is why India has been able to maintain a degree of stability along its borders. Now, this maintenance of degree of stability is very important. This degree of stability is an imperative which allows India a time for build up of its resources and capabilities, does not take away far too many resources from India for dealing with the expensive tactics of our adversaries, and also focuses us to on our economic development and growth. No doubt it has imposed costs on us, but as a developing country, as one of the fastest developing countries, and with a strong economic backup, India today has the capability to absorb this. This is a message that so what are we doing? We are doing incremental capability enhancement, force modernization, and introduction of uh, developing emerging and disruptive technologies for both our defensive and offensive posture, allowing us to deal with all consequences. We have embarked on a theaterization and jointness, which is thanks to the Chinese action has been pushed much further than it could have been pushed otherwise in our system, which is slow to respond. And we are also going in for multi-domain kind of operational capabilities and deploying sensors and capacities in our ISR and space domains. We are enhancing our naval capabilities to deal with Chinese and Pakistani intrusions or attempts to deal with or disrupt our lines of communications. So, along with that, border infrastructures have been speeded up. All actions are being taken by India to ensure that military capacity and capabilities is adequate to deal with all actions that can be taken by our adversaries along the lines of control and line of actual control. And if there is an escalation, India has the capacity and capability to deal with that escalation. Please also note that while India does not talk about nuclear capabilities, the one factor which also not us but our adversaries keep in mind is the notion that India is a nuclear power with a adequate and credible minimum deterrence which can support India should there be an escalation beyond India. That is not first is a no first use power. India does not want to use the nuclear weapons, is a political weapons, but the political weapons does serve the purpose of indicating a political resolve and allowing us to deal with the situations in a conventional framework. The second element of our I'll stop here before I go to diplomatic de-escalation. If there is
Yeah.
any
Yes, sir.
and
I would. Does this the aspect of deterrence? Because we've built up infrastructure, we've staged forward troops, we've done enhanced deployment, we've done rebalancing, and we've also actually during the Kailash range, because that was the last operation which we did. Kailash range, we showed some domination over the Chinese, which they had never expected.
yes,
The kind of domination, and that started the process of the Chinese thinking that look, India can do more harm to us than we can, or probably they'll do matching harm. So we are in a bad situation, and we might as well uh, de-escalate. So this is something which happened. This is the fundamental truth of the whole story. And after that, a lot of build-up has taken place. As much as China has built up, we have also built up in a mirror manner. Often it is spoken that look, China uses the LAC as a pressure point on India. Is this notion now no valid anymore, or it is the LAC is as much as a pressure point on China as it is on India?
the answer to this lies is in the minds of the people. My biggest concern with our thinking is we are a defensive oriented people. We self deter ourselves. But just look at what has happened after 4.5+ years of standoff in Ladakh.
They
Chinese
went back.
decided to huh?
They
Sorry,
went back.
the
They
Chinese
went back.
de-escalated, disengaged, and on the process of de-escalation. What the question to be asked is these people who talk about territorial laws and blah blah blah. The question to be asked them is why did China take this step? What prompted China to take this step? The fundamental point we have to understand is this is conventional war with India in the levels of our capacities and capabilities is not something with the Chinese can come out smiling. They will come out as battered and much more battered than us. And as the time goes, as we build up our missile force, as we build up our other capabilities, We ramp up our own production lines of aircraft, artillery systems, and other systems. This differential in military asymmetry is becoming less and less. So we have to be self-confident on this issue of managing escalation on borders vis-a-vis China. It is not something that should deter us. And this is important from the point of the military minds also. Military minds also have to follow the concept of offensive defense rather than defense per se. And offensive defense basically means is ability to take up offensive operations from a defensive posture at a time and place of your own choosing. So this is something. There is a side effect of this. The side effect of this is that the Pakistanis have now stopped talking about any kind of a military operations against India. It has also negated to a degree the so-called the two front threat. We might think there is a two front threat, but I
It's
do
not there.
not.
I
It is
in
not likely to be prosecuted by Pakistanis in the current conditions. So what is important point I'm trying to make is that we have adopted a calibrated military deterrence strategy to ensure that we send a right message that India is not a pushover. India has the capacity and capabilities to deal with these two elements on our borders, and that we are getting ready as the day goes and getting ready day by day by enhancing our military capacities and capabilities. This is a message which this part of our strategy is talking about, and this is not something which I have thought out. This we must give credit to people in our system who have thought through this strategy. Only thing is not explained to people in this fashion, which I'm trying to do.
Yeah, the second aspect is elucidation which I want to give, because when you said, look, China might have a bigger military in on paper, it might have more airplanes, it might have more missiles, it might have more anything, but on the LAC we are at parity or near parity. They might have a few more missiles and all that there, but at that also I doubt. But they don't have that many aircraft, so I would put it as parity. For this, what I'd like to elucidate what you said, I'm building on for the sake of our audience. There's a RAND analysis, uh,
Hmm.
Belfer
Yes.
Center analysis
Yeah, I've seen
of
it.
this happened. This came in 2019. That is an eye opener. It's an eye opener for those of you who must see it, because that Belfer Center analysis very clearly indicates that on the LAC, India has an advantage. India has a big advantage because at the end of the day, it posits, it's a right, that the PLA has to take care of the LAC and its rear. They're not very sure of the rear.
Hmm.
They're not sure of Tibet. They're not sure of prosecuting a war through Tibet. And they feel that uh, PLA will have, in case of a hot war, PLA will have to look in two directions. That's the first part. So to that extent, I don't think my personal views, and this I've spoken not now. I've been speaking from 2020, that they don't have. We are not in a state of asymmetry with them. In fact, the reverse might be true, provided we think so and do so. That's the proviso in this. The next part of the story is a large part of weapon asymmetry numbers gets offset by terrain, because every terrain has a
Good.
particular limited amount of deployability. You can't deploy more. You might have more, but you can't put it on ground there. And in a place like Tibet, China has reached its maxed out in terms of its deployability. It can't go further. Whereas we have the space to go further ahead, and we have already matched them. And in certain cases, we have more. So I think what uh, Brigadier Arun Sehgal sir was trying to put across to everyone is our military capability and deterrence is very, very calibrated and nuanced. It is not seen, but it is there. And it is for us to realize it. And like he said, I am completely in agreement with him that we need to change our thinking from being defensive to think of offensive defense. So, anything more to add, you might, and then we'll
I
take on
just
that.
want to add one last point.
Yeah, please, sir.
Just taking off from what you said. See, as far as infrastructure build up against the Chinese is concerned, which we have reached the last ridge line before the plains, before the Tibetan plains start. So, as far as we are concerned, having developed the capability to reach the last ridge lines, from us, prosecution of operations will be much easier because we are now entering into a plain ground, whereas Chinese have to fight for friction by friction from one mountain range to another mountain range. They have to fight in a mountainous terrain, whereas we will now have to we have by reaching the last edge of the last mountain range, we will now entering into the valleys of the Tibet. So this is the plains of the Tibet, the plateau, the Tibetan plateau. That's something we may not have the capacity now, but over a period of time, we will develop a capability. So, in short, this famous issue of threatening Chinese communications, the national highway, the GH 219 or whatever it is, those issues will become germane, and which will force Chinese not to look at front, but like the general rightly said, start looking at whether not only because of Tibetans, but for India's ability to interdict those places that much, because we we are now reaching the edge of the Tibetan plateau. If you have any
Yeah,
issues on that, I mean,
no issue, sir. We are okay. We'll.
okay. Now I go to the second part. The diplomatic. So while we have been doing all this, India has been simultaneously engaging both at the with our adversaries as well as in the global arena. So what we have done is this: is that if you see India's diplomatic engagement, while we have been having this standoff with the Chinese, you'll be shocked to know the number of diplomatic engagement that we have done. We have had 27 plus interactions at the political strategic level, foreign minister, defense minister, national security advisors, and foreign secretaries at equivalent levels with the heads of the government. 18 meetings of working mechanism for consultation and coordination on the India-China border affairs, and 22 rounds of corps commander level talks. What does this indicate? It indicates that our strategy of military deterrence resulted in both sides trying to understand the limits of escalation and forcing a more nuanced political standing, a political understanding, as a result of which these extensive interactions on the 24th of October in Kazan, the two sides agreed to finally disengage completely, setting the stage for de-escalation and subsequently troops reduction. Now, this is an important element. So, when I talk about military deterrence and diplomatic de-escalation, so this both these strategies have gone hand in hand, and this was also exemplified by the external affairs minister in his remarks in the parliament when he talked about the fact is that our strong posture, military posture, backed up by diplomacy, was responsible for bringing about this change in the Chinese outlook. What has been our core principle? Our core principle has been respect the line of actual control, avoid unilateral changes in the status quo, and adhere to prior agreements. And this is the important aspect. Respect line of control, avoid unilateral changes, and to the status quo and adhere to prior agreements. And subsequently talks both at the political level, foreign secretaries level, as well as the special representatives level, with the NSA attended. These issues are coming up again and again. Now, why is this the only reason? No. The reason for it is China is finally realizing that perception of hostility with India and ability of the payoffs from that hostility are limited and at times counterproductive. With India having imposed sanctions on Chinese entities, India having imposed sanctions on Chinese imports, India has stopped the in-flights, and mm, and multiple other steps that we economic steps we took have hurt the Chinese. In the current global environment, where trade is becoming a weapon, Chinese realize that having a large market like India outside its purview and having a conflictual relationship with this market is counterproductive. I'm not giving an economic lecture, but the point to note is that this is something which we need to know. And another point I'm trying to make is this: is no doubt the trade will be contested. No doubt each side will try to seek advantage. But the fact of the matter is that despite the $100 billion trade deficit, it is important for us to ensure that the Chinese investments are come in an area where we need them. And in this, because of the current global environment where China has become some sort of a pariah to the Western markets, India can be a very important player for them in their approach, and therefore India can dictate its terms. How we manage this is something which we need to do. So this is an important aspect of the payoffs as far as this thing is concerned, as of a strong uh, political engagement on the sidelines of a military stance is concerned. As far as Pakistan is concerned, uh, we have depended upon, since we have not had any for last 7 years any direct relationship, recalled our ambassadors, etc. It is has been done through back channels. Back channels, ladies and gentlemen, are an important element in relations where the relations are strained, and yet we want to maintain a certain compatibility of our relationships. And here, the back channels was responsible for 2021 the agreement of ceasefire agreement, which on the line of control, which holds today. It had multiple other elements which have not come out in the press, but by and large, it talked about certain degree of political changes in Kashmir. The other day, the retired Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, in reply to one of our ambassadors, had mentioned that we have stopped all terrorist activities. Well, those were part and parcel of those discussions that took place as part of the back channel, whether Pakistan will hold fire, will not allow the terrorists to destroy terrorist bases, and will not allow them to infiltrate. Although we see that some of these elements of the ceasefire agreement is fraying at certain places, and we have had recently some large encounters, attempts to infiltrate, etc. But the point is, by and large, this thing has helped. So, we important issue over here again has been twofold vis-a-vis Pakistan. We have escalated to our advantage. We have used military force to our advantage when we needed to use, but it has been a calibrated use, and we have conveyed to the other side we have no desire to escalate beyond a point. We want to tell you that terrorism is counterproductive. You will not be able to change anything through terrorism. That Kashmir is an integral part of India. These tactics will not survive. These tactics will not suffice. These tactics will not work. So if you want to do business with us, it's important for you to to deal with us directly and don't use terror as a weapon. So this is the aspect which I want to highlight as far as these things is concerned. Then of course the other elements of this is our global diplomacy. We have reached out to saying we are part of Indo-Pacific, we are part of quadrilateral, we have a good strategic partnership with United States, we have strategic partnership with Russia, we have reached out to the Middle East. So we have created an environment where India is an important strategic player for the global arena, which itself indicates to the others that the Indian strategic heft is increasing, and it is important that you cannot undermine or isolate India in the global terms. So that also has helped in. The third element, of course, is our trade and economy. Our trade has gone up, our economic growth has gone up. We are a $4 trillion economy, and as our economic process progresses, we will be a much stronger player. Our we are building up capacities and capabilities. So, in all, the totality of India's growth, India's approach, India's diplomacy, and strong military capabilities are the result that this dual strategy of military deterrence and diplomatic de-escalation is working. I'll stop here if there are any issues. I
No,
think
I'm fine, sir, because uh, don't you think in this new paradigm of diplomacy, military diplomacy has come of age, or do you think there's more to go? Because what is different from what we have done now to what diplomacy we used to do earlier? Uh, the military diplomacy part has gone up, and if this has gone up, is it this, or should we look at more?
no, no. See, again, the very important part is like I'll give you an example. Example is like we have started posting trade and commerce diplomats into our embassies abroad, who are there for or to do technology, trade, and other talks with our interlocutors for helping India growth. Similarly, it is important as India grows, Atmanirbhar Bharat grows, we need to have important players, important military people in all these locations who understands technology, who understand military diplomacy to ensure and also for messaging to the other side. What is our message? It's sometimes diplomats, of course, are very capable of giving the message, but it's important that the military people give the message, and that is why I think one of the good things with the Ministry of Defense have done has enhanced the number of military attaches and sent them to places where they were not there earlier to uh, provide the awareness. And yet another element is that India has now become a net exporter. India is now exporting armaments. India is exporting systems. So once we become an important arms player or providing weapon systems to countries who are friendly with us and become a part of the global arms supply chain, it will become important for us to have a much more military interface to our diplomacy. And this is what i I believe, and I believe that it should happen. And I think just now, only today, it has been announced the Philippines is looking for more armament from us, and
Yes, sir.
I'm sure very soon Vietnam is going to buy some more weapon system from us. As we grow, this also puts pressure on us to look at our own internal productions and our own internal systems in a more calibrated manner to ensure that our our startups, our internal production chains, our own factories, and our technology developments, our research are all geared up for India to develop this capacity. And here again, I would say that India has to also look at not military technology, but all military technology should be try and as far as possible should be dual use technology,
Dual
because
use.
that's where the uh, payoffs are the highest.
Uh, Thank you, sir. Thanks for this wonderful talk. Um, with your permission, can I take a few questions? I'll not keep
Yes, sure, sure,
because
sure,
it's
sure, sure, sure.
first and foremost, I'd like to thank Dinesh Talwar who's joined us as a member. So kind of you. Uh, yeah, there's a question. So, how should Trump's reversal on F-16 sustenance aid to Pakistan be interpreted? Given his earlier ban in Trump 1.0 and the broader freeze on US assistance.
See, basically, what Trump is telling the Pakistanis is that you got these aircrafts under the premise of fighting terrorism. Use these weapons to fight terrorism. You're not going to get any more upgradations from us. Make do with this. But this is something which is not going to hurt the Pakistanis very much, primarily because they are already talking about getting induction J-10s, and Chinese are going to give them J-35s as a part of a larger payoffs, and that payoff, in my view, is directly related to what happens in Gwadar, what kind of a deal on Gwadar is reached, but they will get there. Interestingly, what we need to acknowledge is that the Chinese are massively upgrading the Pakistani capabilities,
Pakistan's capability.
and second is they are also getting a massive amount of assistance from Turkey. The difference between the Pakistan and us is very simple. There, if the military desires, they do their internal checks. They desire that this particular weapon system is to be bought. Then they decide what approach is to be taken, and they take that approach. Whether it is through narcotics, whether it is through through Bhaibandi, through China, friendly rates, etc., that they get. So that is why the sad reality is that Pakistan has got more AWACS or AEW systems than India has. They bought them from Saab some years back. I'm just giving it an example. So these are these are indicators. The Trump administration is right now telling Pakistan that you guys are not in our good books. You better behave. But please understand, terrorism is a dynamic problem. Afghanistan continues to boil. They are concerned about it. Iran is another issue. And if tomorrow Iran becomes nuclear and Americans need something to do with use Pakistan again, they will reach out to them. So they always have what is called a window of opportunity open vis-a-vis Pakistan. And there are large number of Pakistani senior officers, retired generals who are dual citizens of not dual citizens of Pakistan as well as England, and therefore uh, there is a love fest between Pakistan and the West, particularly the United States and UK.
Yeah, we can't wish them away.
You
And
can't wish them
what I
away.
you can't wish them away. And I did an analysis and I did a program on Ganashot only where I showed figures. Roughly, the Chinese percentage of Chinese equipment in the Pakistan army is about 60%. The Turkish is somewhere between 10 to 15%. It is growing. The legacy equipment is what with with they got from France and USA and all that. That's just about 25 to 30%. Now, if even
Old.
that goes, it's old. If that also goes, then the hold of those countries on Pakistan will reduce. And that is why one of the reasons why I suppose USA is investing into this upgradation of this F-16. so that there is some hold on Pakistan. If those F-16s are not there, there's no hold on Pakistan. And
But
okay,
they are taking away the pylons for nuclear weapons.
yeah. Then so China doesn't respect agreements nowadays. US doesn't either. Should we reconsider our philosophy, or does our word carry more weight now if we stick to our philosophy?
So the question is very simple. They don't agree to respect agreements. Absolutely true, but fundamental issue that we have to ask ourselves is our philosophy or strategy working for us or is not working for us? What are the costs that we are paying for this strategy? If we think the costs are manageable, acceptable, I don't think we should change our strategy. Please understand, we are in the developing stage and we are now taking large strides. We are crossing bigger hurdles, both in development, both in economy, both in military technologies and emerging technologies. So I think India has to stay the course. India has to ensure that its economy continues to grow. India has to ensure that our Atmanirbhar programs continue to grow, and we take technology development and technology cooperation route rather than direct uh, 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 import of weapon systems, which Mr. Trump is trying to do to us. I think whatever we buy from United States, as an example, we must have a technology cooperation agreement with that. That is, they must bring in something into India, some new technologies into India, or supply chains to be built in India. Integration of supply chain, defense supply chains must become a core part of our strategic thinking and our philosophy in dealing with any of our foreign buyers.
Uh, Sir, I read that BrahMos is not useful for Philippines without C4ISR. Is this a negative campaign against this? Your views?
Absolutely true. C4ISR is not something we give at BrahMos. C4ISR is created by the country of concern.
Yeah,
And if Philippines does not have C4ISR with the
all the
American
best to
support,
them.
I do not know who will have.
Who
So,
will have?
so this is calumny. This is an attempt to down to to put us down. This is an absolutely negative campaign, sir. Disregarded.
Yeah. So, this guy is a Chinese, sir. He feels that there should be diplomatic deterrence and military de-escalation. It's an interesting juxtaposition
Yeah,
of
I
his
think
own
you answered it.
view.
We absolutely correct, sir. We are looking for diplomatic deterrence and military de-escalation when the situation comes about and when you and us agree to become more important economic and trade partners rather than using leverages of the line of control, etc., to to
And Pakistan's.
escalate and coercive tactics. It's not. This is the end state that we are also looking for.
Okay. I think we've done for the day, sir. We've answered a few questions. I'll not take more. But I thought we had a tremendous idea of this business of military deterrence and diplomatic de-escalation at a different level. So all this has to be not the run-of-the-mill kind of a thinking. It has to be at a higher level. And I'd also like to thank you for the idea you gave us about Pakistan. The word which I'll carry away today is that Pakistan is a despondent nation, which sees a bleak future,
Yes.
and it doesn't. It's not, and all said and done, overall, if you look at it, it's not a very confident nation like it was anymore.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Absolutely.
so, is there anything else you'd like to say, sir?
No,
Otherwise,
sir.
we'll.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
And right, sir. Thank you, sir, and thanks a lot, and thanks a lot to everyone who's attended. Join in tomorrow. Most probably, we'll be discussing about Bangladesh. Is there a coup likely to be in Bangladesh? That'll be at 9:30. Till then, goodbye and Jai Hind to all of you.
Jai Hind, sir. Thank you. Thank you.